each of these has its place in a poem, but when you're writing a piece and you're tracking the action, what is happening? Is the poem progressing? Is it moving backwards in time? Is it moving forwards in time? Is it freezing time and just focusing on a single moment? Is it going into a moment of introspection on part of the speaker or a character? All of these things can impact your reader's experience with the poem. All of them, again, can certainly serve a purpose, although they can also potentially be things that can take a poem up, take your reader out of your piece. And so today we're going to be taking a look at how poems progress by taking a look at an example poem. This one by the username Dale Tudge Humor. Thanks to them for sharing their piece with us. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, guys. Welcome to our weekly poetry analysis show, Fine Print, where basically you send us a poem and we take a look at it. We just kind of see what's going on in terms of the structure, what are the stakes, what's the movement of the poem, what's the structure of the poem, what's the speaker doing, what are the implications, where's the turn, all that sort of fun analysis. And to guide you in this process, there is me. Hello, guys. My name is Jeff. It rhymes with breath. And we're going to be taking a look at this piece here. Let's kind of bring it on screen so we all can see it together. And again, I do want to once more thank Dale Tudge for allowing us to dive into the poem. Again, it doesn't have a title, at least not one I'm aware of. I stepped on a field cricket. It jumped out of the thicket. Its last sound was a crunch, not a chirp. Its song erased by my foot, misplaced. The silence that followed felt jagged and sharp. I looked at the ground, where the cricket was found. A moment later, it was a stellar jay's snack. The other hoppers went still, as if sensing the chill. Were they being more wary of boot or of beak? The night carried on, and the silence was drawn to an end as the crickets resumed their churred chorus. Churred is a good word. All right, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Thank you to Dale Tudge Humor for allowing us to dive into the piece. Okay, so my main focus today that I want us to spend some time paying attention to, and then hopefully you can do this with your own pieces, is just kind of see what is the movement of our poem. So let's just kind of do some arrows. So there's lots of little chunks here. So we can kind of follow the caesura, which means like our punctuation, and kind of just see, hey, we'll do an up arrow if we're moving forward. Or actually, no, even easier. We'll do a right arrow if we're moving forward. We'll do a left arrow if we're moving backwards. And then we'll do an X if we're just kind of staying in a single moment. Okay. All right, so allow me to get my marker. Okay, and of course, as we go through the piece, if you want to kind of let me know your own thoughts as we dive in, you're more than welcome to do so. My pen is here. Okay. So, I stepped on a field cricket. All right, so that's, in my opinion, that's us moving forward. So we're going to put a little forward arrow there. It jumped out of the thicket. The action keeps moving, right? You can think of it almost like a narrative. It's a story, right? And one action, it's chronological, happens after the next. Okay. Its last sound was a crunch, not a chirp. Okay, so now what happens in terms of our action? Well, at this moment in our poem, what we get is the action freezes, right? We're just describing. So when we describe things, when we use things like a verb to be, a lot of your stative verbs, stative verbs like verbs like to be, to taste something, to have something. These are verbs that freeze your momentum. They don't move an action forward. Everything just kind of stays static. Okay, so these are two moments here where we are not progressing. We're just kind of staying in the moment. Okay, and again, I really can't stress this enough. Like progression or lack of progression isn't necessarily like a problem or anything like that. I'm just trying to track what is the actual movement. Okay, its song erased by my foot, misplaced. So once more, the action is not continuing. Okay, everything else here is a description of this moment. Basically, everything that's happening here is just describing everything that happened in the first line. Sorry for pause. All those, the second and third line, they're just kind of like the speaker's realizations of what's happening. Okay, so there is no real movement forward. The second and third line are just kind of moments where the speaker's sharing their understanding, their realizations. The silence that followed felt jagged and sharp. So this is now we're back to moving, right? We're moving the poem forward. The silence that followed felt jagged and sharp. I looked at the ground. We're moving forward again. Where the cricket was found. No movement there. I don't even know if you need that comment technically. Seems a little extra. Okay. A moment later, it was a stellar J snack. So again, once more, we're moving forward. Okay. The other hoppers went still. I'm thinking, so this is sometimes you get into the situations where, okay, is this, on the timeline, a moment later was a stellar J snack. So I guess a moment later signifies that we are moving forward in time. Okay, so I would say I think this happens after the I looked at the ground. As if sensing the chill. Again, I don't think you really need the comma there. But okay. If we do separate it, I would have that as being a kind of a stalled moment. What else is happening? Were they being more wary of boot or of beak? So now, once more, we're freezing. So now we're really outside of the story. This is our moment of introspection. And I kind of want to even separate this because it's not just that we're stalling time describing things, but now we're almost outside of time itself. Like this sort of contemplation is not even in some ways even in the same moment. So I'm going to kind of highlight this one. This is our moment of introspection. Okay. It's also interesting. So this is the first time that we get this sort of thing. So not our main focus today, but I think it's worth spending some time here. This is probably your turn, right? I would argue this is your turn, your volta in your poem, because this is the moment where things change. We haven't had a moment of this much introspection that's very separate from the movement of the poem the entire time. Okay. So that's a pretty big shift. Other things that kind of suggest to me that this is your turn. This is the only time we have a question. Very first time. It's the very first time we're starting with a verb. No other line is starting. Every other line is starting with with the other function words like pro or even more function words. A lot of pronouns, articles. Yeah, this is your only content word. So there's different types of words. There's content words and there's function words. Your content words are like your nouns, your verbs, your adjectives. Your function words are your articles, prepositions, pronouns. This is the only line that starts with a content word, which I think is pretty interesting. It's also a question. So this line is really doing a lot of things different. It's also the only line that really carries that weight of introspection and kind of just a reflection of the speaker, like where that's the only thing that happens. Okay. So all of those things together really suggest to me that this is the turn. The question then becomes is why is this, were they being more wary of boot or of beak? So when we have these moments of turn, they suggest moments of also significance and implication. I guess for one thing for me, and again, the goal of fine print isn't critiquing. It's just kind of seeing what is the poem doing in itself. But a question that I have here is what's the significance of this? Why does the speaker, that's probably the better question. Why is the speaker so concerned about this? Because right now I don't really get the weight. So why is this like of concern to the speaker? because right now I'm just not fully seeing it. Especially because the next line just takes away a lot of that energy, right? Next line, the night carried on, and the silence was drawn. So now we're back to just progressing the poem. Okay, so we move forward. Night carried on, the silence was drawn. I think you can make an argument that the movement stalls there, but I'll say it's moving forward. Was drawn to an end as the crickets resumed their churred course. Okay, and then things move forward. Okay. So why is this, important to consider? And I would love to know your own thoughts about, when you're looking at kind of just a movement in a piece, why these things are kind of important to think about. I think that different poems are doing different things, but sometimes you have poems that are just pure action, 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 with none of the pausing. And I think sometimes when that happens, without that moment of, for instance, introspection or reflection, it can be somewhat tricky to know about the significance for the speaker. Okay, and there's ways around that. You can play with your title and stuff like that. On the other hand, when a poem gets really bogged down in a single moment in time and just kind of freezes you there and just layers the descriptions and introspection and reflections and thoughts, then the work can feel really cerebral and be really heavy. Okay, I find personally that the moments where the narration is progressing forward chronologically, I find that can often be very grounding for people, whereas the moments where time freezes and we get the heavy description and the reflections, those are times where things can get a little bit heavy and it can lean towards abstraction and potentially getting your reader lost. Okay, so these are some of the things. It's a balance. I think everything has its purpose. So then my question for you for your own piece is, if you're tracking this, are there moments where you think maybe you need a little bit more action? Are there moments where you think, oh, maybe you need to freeze time a little bit? Are there moments where you think maybe the speaker needs to get a little bit more involved, or a character needs to get a little bit, we need to get into that character's head a little bit to understand more of the motive, the stakes for them, the understanding about the context and why the situation is so key to their experience? Because those are just some things to be thinking about. So I want to extend again a thank you to Dale Judge Humor for allowing us to take a look at this piece so we can explore it through this sense of progression, stalling, and reflection. Let us know for your own pieces what you tend to be doing. Do you tend to lean heavy narration? Do you tend to lean a little bit more cerebral and keep time kind of in a single moment? Do you jump around in time a lot? I would love to know what's happening in your pieces. Guys, thanks for hanging out with me. We'll be back next Sunday with another edition of Fine Print. But if you want to hang out with us online, we also have our Tuesday show, The Verses Live, where we talk about craft point, poetry point, business point for writing. Once a week, that'll be on Tuesday, right around 9:30, 9:45 p.m. New York. On Wednesday, if you want to join us online, we have Lo-Fi Poet, where we take a listen to different beats, and then we also write 2 poetry prompts for a half hour. That's 8:30 to 9 p.m. New York time. So if you want to hang out with us online, a couple opportunities coming out for you. Once more, my name is Jeff. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. I will see you all later. I hope that you have a good day, have a good night, have a good afternoon, conclusion to your weekend, and we'll see you later.